We are continuing on to talk about and discuss draft prospects that could potentially become a Chicago Bull in the draft in less than a month now. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about Carter Bryant, forward out of Arizona. But is it a gamble pick? Y'all know we're going to talk about it and break it down, along with some prospects that the Chicago Bulls have reportedly worked out already. But you already know, you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shot Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. We kick these things off today talking about Carter Bryant, forward out of Arizona. Listed at 6'8", but at the combine came in barefoot. 6'6", but it doesn't really matter because he don't play basketball barefoot, at least in the United States. But nonetheless, young forward coming out of Arizona. I'm sorry, Martin. I just didn't want to go to Arizona. I know y'all gotta think about that every time y'all hear somebody bring up Arizona. Maybe it's just me being a big fan of the show Martin. But let's talk about Carter Bryant. He came in and at the combine, they measured him out. He had a 6'11" wingspan. And last year for Arizona, my man's averaged about 6 points, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block in 19 minutes coming off the bench. I know that's something that a lot of people are going to be turned off to because it's really not what I really like, considering the number 4th pick that we took a couple years ago came off the bench and where he is at right now, on the bench. But I can't, just to be fair, we cannot compare everybody to Patrick Williams because that's just a different topic for another day, and he is a different breed. We just gonna keep it right there. But Carter Bryant, my man's had 46% shooting from the field, 37% shooting from the three on 3 attempts per game. If you look around some comparisons when it comes to Carter Bryant, they have him listed and comped as guys like a Jeff Green or a Trevor Ariza. Now, when you sit there and you watch Carter Bryant, I like what he could potentially bring to a Chicago Bulls team. I like some of his cutting ability. I think that'll be good for a point guard like Josh Giddey. That'll be good for others who can potentially make that pass, depending on who the big is. Right now, it's Nikola Vucevic. Hey, but I expect Nikola Vucevic to not be with the team. But this guy has an ability to cut to the basket and cut hard and then finish at the rim. That's one thing that I like. And then another thing I like is the corner 3 for the guy. It seemed like the man damn near automatic. And 37% shooting from that spot is nothing to sneeze at when you talk about how you're able to space the floor as a forward in the NBA as you're moving on. And I really like this guy's athleticism. You look at some of the things that he's able to do. You see how he's able to get up and down the floor. I've seen him even be able to execute some outlet passes that was really clean and nice. And on the defensive side, you like what he can bring in that regard as well. On the defensive side, I believe Carter Bryant showed a good, you know what I'm saying, some good things when it was able for his ability to slide his feet on the defensive side. You like that he's, with his size and the way that he plays with some of that physicality, that he's able to be a guy that you can insert on your team. He can guard multiple positions. I like that he can be a potential lob threat for, say, if somebody like Josh Giddey or if Lonzo Ball is still around, to where you can use him as a lob threat. I love what he does on the defensive side, to where, like, hey, you see, there are some times to where guys get by him. I'm not going to say and act like I have not seen that. But the good thing is that he has good recovery ability. He's able to recover and go out there and block those shots if a guy is getting past him. And he has a good second jump. I know that we look at the first time somebody can jump, but hey, for that pump fake, he get in the air and then the guy goes up after that pump fake. He's quick off his feet and does it well enough to where he can go out there and block a shot, which is definitely going to be key for a guy that's coming in at 6'8", playing the forward spot. I don't necessarily know if the Chicago Bulls will want him to mostly play the 4 or the 3. It looks like their intentions is having Montes become their 4. And then the guy like this, if they were to select them, will be potentially placed at the 3. But it's really kind of like a positionless thing right now going around on the NBA, depending on how you play and how matchups are. You can pretty much fit them in the small ball lineup. You know that Billy Donovan likes to go to that. And you can say, hey, go ahead out there, just be one of my wings. Just go out there and be one of my wings. Now, some of my questions when it comes to him is the elephant in the room coming off the bench. Coming off the bench. But I got to show him a lot of love because he was able to grab the attention of his coach while he was over there in Arizona, to where the coach heavily depended on him and leaned on him, especially in the NCAA tournament. His minutes went up from 18 to 20 in all 6 contests that he played in the NCAA tournament. Some things that might be in question as well is the offensive ability, though, because the highest scoring output for my man's Carter Bryant was 12 points. And that was in a win over Akron. You know what I'm saying? You take that for what it is. You maybe say, hey, that's not really good competition. And I also look at it like, can he go out there and create some shots for himself? I know it's not the end all be all, and sometimes you just need guys to go out there and play their role. But outside of that corner 3, what does your midi look like? Outside of the midi, can you go for a pick and pop? Can you shoot off the dribble? Because those are some of the things that have been concerning and being talked about when you talk about a guy like Carter Bryant. Yes, he can shoot spot up threes really, really well, but can you shoot off the dribble is another thing. And if we look at the combine stats, my man went 11 for 30. That's not even 50%. I don't necessarily think you have to hit 50%, but off the dribble, you want to see if that guy could be able to hit that at a consistent basis for the Chicago Bulls if they were to go out there and look at him for their team. And I would say I want to see a little bit more out of the handle. I think he plays strong, he plays physical, but I want to see if he's able to handle the rock better when it comes to now you moving up into the NBA. And if we've been watching these playoffs in the NBA, hey, you got to be able to have some at least a decent handle to be able to be out on the floor, to be able to go through how the physicality that's being played right now out there in oh my goodness, out there in the NBA. And you want to see if this guy's capable of being able to execute that for the team. So it's going to be very, very interesting for a guy like Carter Bryant to see, can you be able to be impactful, especially knowing that we took a guy in Patrick Williams who came off the bench and pretty much just have everybody in Chicago up in arms, bro. Everybody up in arms. And then, you know what I'm saying, the shot creation. What does your offense look like? Is he still so limited on the offensive side of the ball? There's a bunch of questions when it comes to that. And shooting off the dribble. Yes, you're going to come in. You're going to be viewed as a 3-and-D type of guy. So we want to see if you're going to be able to execute in that regard, because it's going to be very, very essential to what he brings to the Chicago Bulls. But I'm not really, if you ask me if it's a gamble, I'm looking at it like a gamble, bro. Me personally, I think that you already got some 3-and-D prospects on your team that you can already utilize. Does this young fella bring something? I say he can potentially bring something, but I think there's a few more prospects that are out there. Me personally, this is a guy you might select later in the draft simply because those limitations on the offensive side of the ball. And to my mindset, I'm trying to see what the Bulls are going to go with this, because the Chicago Bulls, they like to go off potential instead of what a guy is showing us. There are limitations on the offensive side of the ball. Now, I think he plays well defensively, but does it really make sense? So for me, it'll be an absolute gamble if you go out and select a Carter Bryant in this year draft at 12. At 12. I like a lot of things about him, but when it comes to the Chicago Bulls and how can you come in and have an impact right away to where you can step in this, I need to be able to see a decent handle. I need to be able to see if you can go out there and hit a couple jump shots outside of the 3-point line. He could very well go out there and be a player that you can lean on defensively. I think that he can offer that, but that's not the end all be all for the Chicago Bulls. Now, I know there could be some pushback, and you look at Josh Giddey's going to have to get his, Kobe White, Montes Buzelis. with the expectations of more things being placed on Montes Buzelis, maybe he could just come in, stick a lot of defense, and be limited to the 3-point shooting. But if teams start to close out on that, can you put the ball on the floor and get to the basket? I've seen examples of that, but can you do it consistently well enough to where it's now being impactful for yourself and the Chicago Bulls? So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the Chicago Bulls pivot in this draft coming up in a couple more weeks. Now, before we get up out of here, we got to talk about some of the workouts that's being reported. This is coming from Hoops Hype. The Chicago Bulls, they have worked out Mark Sears, guard out of Alabama, CJ Huntley out of Appalachian State. That's a power forward, and shooting guard Miles Kelly out of Auburn. When you talk about Mark Sears, this is a 6'1" guard. He's been in college a while. He played 5 seasons in college, started all 37 games last year for Alabama, while giving Alabama 18 points per game, 5 assists, total rebounds about 3. You looking at the field goal percentage, it's at about a 40%, with 34% coming from the 3-point line. You ask me, I think this is probably some guy that they might be looking at in the second round, hence why they probably worked him out so early. But we'll see what transpired out of that. Me personally, I want to stay away from guards, especially small guards like this. It's not something I'd be interested in. I mean, he was all SEC 3 times and has some accolades up in there, but at the same time, I'd rather look to adding more size. And if I'm going to take a gamble on somebody, give me some bigs with some upside in the later round or in the second round, where the Chicago Bulls are going to be picking at 45th in this draft. So we'll see, though. We'll see what they are liking about him. Our next guy is CJ Huntley. CJ Huntley, hey, this is a guy that played 5 years in college as well for Appalachian State. And for them, my man's gave them 15 points last season, 0.7 blocks, 0.6 steals, 8 total rebounds. And then when you talk about his field goal percentage, my man was able to accumulate 49% from the field and 35% from the 3 while shooting about 4 attempts per game. I say that's a prospect that you absolutely explore a little bit more. He was 2024, 2025 all Sun Belt. So I think that speaks to what he was able to do on the basketball court. Again, it is just a workout. He is a forward coming out of Appalachian State. So we'll see what transpires with that. The last guy that the Chicago Bulls worked out was my man's Miles Kelly coming out of Auburn. This is a 6'4" guard. Again, no more guards. It has been playing he played at Georgia Tech first, then in last season played for Auburn. This is a guy that comes in and playing 4 years in college, gave Auburn 11 points, 1 steal, a total of about 4 rebounds and 1 assist, but the field goal percentage is 40%, and he's shooting 37% from 3 on 6 attempts, which is pretty damn good as a starter in the NCAA. So we'll see what transpires from Miles Kelly. Again, these are just workouts that are being reported for the Chicago Bulls. Nothing too crazy. I'm looking at all these guys as potentially being those second round options or later in the draft options, the later of the first round. So we'll be seeing and watching to see what transpires out of these players here. But me, look, it ain't too many guards that I'm interested in. Maybe your Igor Denham is probably the only one, simply because of the size that he's going to come with. Again, I don't want to crap on these guys and say that they don't have an absolute chance, because the Chicago Bulls might still bring some of these guys in to evaluate them and then see how they can contribute to the team in the future or be a contributor to the G League team. So I ain't going to sell these guys short. I'm going to just go ahead and watch and keep my eyes open and see what these guys could potentially bring. But again, when it comes to Sears, it's no disrespect, because I'm a short fella myself. But 6'1" guards, I seen Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell constantly get bounced throughout their careers early in the playoffs, simply because they don't have the size, and other factors into that has transpired as of late for those. So, and I want emphasis on my front court. I think that the front court needs to be totally changed. Me personally, I think Josh Giddey, if you want to bring him back and have him be productive and successful for the foreseeable future, you need to address your front court. with guys that can go out there and be effective in the paint, guys that can potentially hit an occasional three, be solid on defensive end, and then become a lob threat for the Chicago Bulls. But that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in into another episode of Shy Bulls Podcast. Make sure you go ahead and leave your thoughts, your feedback, your comments, concerns down in the comment box below. Let's chop it up about these Bulls. And yeah, man, let's keep moving and pushing forward. We on that road to that AK. So if you feel like somebody will enjoy it, share this with your mama's mama. We just 50 away. We appreciate it though. Make sure y'all always see red, and y'all already know. I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.